Tonight, around 3 in the morning, your eyes will snap open. The room is silent. The air is cool. You look at the digital clock and feel a sharp wave of frustration because you know you should be unconscious. You assume your body is failing you. You blame the stress sitting on your chest from yesterday's unfinished work. You blame the coffee you had at 4 in the afternoon. You blame the hour you spent on your phone before bed. You run through every possible explanation because the alternative is too unsettling. The alternative is that something is fundamentally wrong with your biology. But your frustration is built on a lie. The story you've been told about sleep, the 8-hour rule, the single unbroken block, the idea that waking up in the night means something is broken, is not ancient wisdom. It is a modern invention. It is a product of factories and light bulbs and time cards, not of millions of years of human evolution. You are not suffering from insomnia. You are not anxious or defective or chemically imbalanced. You are performing a biological ritual that kept every single one of your ancestors alive. The real question is not why you keep waking up at 3 a.m. The real question is why you were ever told not to. The core thesis of this video is uncomfortable. Everything you believe about healthy sleep is historically wrong. For the vast majority of human existence on this planet, the 8-hour sleep block did not exist. It was not the goal. It was not the standard. It was not even imaginable. Think of sleep not as a wall, a single, solid, unbroken barrier of darkness, but as a bridge with a deliberate gap built into its center. Your ancestors crossed that bridge every single night. They crossed it without alarm, without medication, without a sleep tracker on their wrist. The gap was not a flaw in the bridge. The gap was the point. Now imagine that over the last 200 years, someone filled that gap with concrete. They told you the bridge was always supposed to be solid. They told you the gap was a structural defect. They told you to call an engineer, or in this case, a doctor, if you ever felt the gap again. You have been living on a bridge that was rebuilt without your consent. And every night at 3 a.m., your body finds the seam. To understand what was stolen from you, you have to travel back to a world without artificial light. The year is 1650. The sun sets at 6 in the evening. You have no electricity, no gas lamp, no candle bright enough to make staying awake past 8 o'clock practical or affordable. As the darkness settles, your pineal gland begins flooding your bloodstream with melatonin. Your core body temperature drops. Your heart rate slows. You fall into what your ancestors called the first sleep within an hour of sunset. This first sleep is dominated by slow-wave non-REM stages. This is where your brain consolidates memory, repairs cellular damage, and flushes the toxic metabolic byproducts of a day of thinking. It is the most physically restorative phase of your entire biological cycle. It lasts approximately 4 hours. Then it ends, not because something goes wrong, because it is finished. Your body has completed its first biological task of the night, and now it shifts gears. Around midnight, your eyes open. You are awake. And in 1650, this is not a catastrophe. This is the watch. Historian Roger Ekirch at Virginia Tech spent 20 years reconstructing this lost world. He excavated over 500 references to segmented sleep buried inside ancient court records, personal diaries, medical texts, and household accounts stretching across multiple continents and centuries. The references were everywhere. They were hiding in the margins of monastic prayer schedules. They surfaced in the depositions of English peasants describing their nightly routines. They appeared in the medical writings of the 16th century physician Galen, who recommended specific herbal remedies to be taken specifically during the period between first and second sleep. The midnight watch was not a disorder, it was a cultural institution. People used this period to get out of bed, to stoke the fire, to check on animals, to pray, to visit neighbors who were also awake. Medieval Christian monks built their entire prayer schedule around it, timing the canonical hour of matins precisely to the midnight gap. Couples use this time for intimacy, for conversation, for the kind of slow, unguarded reflection that the chaos of the day never permitted. The midnight gap was when people talked about their dreams while the dreams were still fresh. It was when problems that seemed insoluble at sundown suddenly had answers. It was 2 hours of quiet, prolactin-rich consciousness in the dead center of the night. And then, after those 2 hours, the body issued another signal. Your eyelids grew heavy again. The second sleep began. This second block was dominated by REM sleep. This was the phase of vivid dreaming, emotional processing, and creative consolidation. It lasted until dawn. 2 sleeps, 1 gap. This was the nightly architecture of the human species for thousands of years. Then the Industrial Revolution arrived and dismantled it in under a century. Factories needed synchronized labor. Time became a unit of economic output rather than a natural rhythm. The concept of shift work demanded that humans operate on a clock that had nothing to do with the sun. Gaslighting arrived in the early 19th century and made the night commercially profitable for the first time in history. Electric lighting followed and completed the transformation. Suddenly, staying awake past midnight was not just possible, it was expected. Bedtimes were pushed later and later to accommodate work, social life, and the expanding entertainment economy. The 2-sleep window collapsed. People compressed both sleeps into one forced session that started later at night and ended with an alarm clock. By the early 20th century, the midnight watch had vanished from public memory so completely that when people woke in the middle of the night, they had no framework to understand it. Doctors, armed with the new language of psychiatry, gave it a name. They called it insomnia. They called it a disorder. They called it a symptom of anxiety, depression, or poor sleep hygiene. They began prescribing sedatives to eliminate the gap that your body had spent millions of years perfecting. We didn't fix a problem, we created one. We then sold you the cure for the disease we invented. Now understand what actually happens to you at 3 a.m., because this is where everything changes. When your eyes open in the dark tonight, your brain is not malfunctioning. It is completing its first sleep cycle and looking for the gap. It is searching for the watch. But instead of getting 2 hours of quiet, prolactin-rich tranquility, it gets you checking your phone. That screen emits blue spectrum light that your retinal cells are specifically evolved to interpret as daylight. The moment that light hits your eyes, your brain receives a single unambiguous signal: the sun is rising. Melatonin production halts. Cortisol begins surging. Your core body temperature starts climbing. Your heart rate accelerates. You are now biologically awake in the worst possible way. Not the calm, meditative wakefulness of the midnight watch, but the stress-activated wakefulness of a body that believes it is already morning and is now running behind. And then you lie there in that activated state, staring at the ceiling, calculating how much more sleep you can still salvage if you fall back asleep right now. That calculation triggers more cortisol, which triggers more wakefulness, which triggers more calculation. You have accidentally constructed a perfect anxiety loop out of one biological moment that was never supposed to be anxious at all. Psychiatrist Thomas Wehr proved this in a landmark study. He removed artificial light from the participants for 14 hours a day. He gave their bodies back the darkness they had lost. Within 3 to 4 weeks, without any instruction or intention, every single participant reverted to segmented sleep. They all began waking up spontaneously in the middle of the night. They all reported feeling unusually calm, reflective, and clear-headed during this period. Wehr measured their hormone levels during the midnight gap and found prolactin spiking dramatically, the same hormone released during meditation, during deep relaxation, during the moments of greatest psychological clarity in human experience. The midnight watch was not a symptom, it was a feature. It was perhaps the most neurologically valuable 2 hours in your entire biological cycle. and you have been medicating it, stressing over it, and scrolling through it for your entire adult life. Here is the paradox that modern sleep culture refuses to confront directly. You live in a world that is obsessed with optimization. You track your steps, your macros, your heart rate variability, your deep sleep percentages on a wristband that costs $300. You pay for meditation apps to teach you how to quiet your mind. You buy weighted blankets and blackout curtains and magnesium supplements and white noise machines. You have built an entire consumer infrastructure around the desperate pursuit of calm. And yet the deepest, most naturally occurring window of calm in your entire biology arrives every single night at 3 a.m., completely free, requiring nothing from you except the willingness to stop fighting it.
The wakefulness you are trying to eliminate is the very thing you are spending hundreds of dollars a year trying to manufacture during daylight hours. You are broken not because your sleep is fragmented. You are broken because you were taught to be afraid of your own silence. Russell Foster, a neuroscientist at Oxford University who studies circadian biology, argues that the cultural pressure to sleep in one consolidated block is generating a widespread, self-reinforcing anxiety about sleep that makes sleep measurably worse. The fear of waking up is actively causing you to wake up. The cure is making the disease. This is not a small irony. This is the central crisis of modern rest. So the next time the darkness releases you at 3 a.m., stop. Don't reach for your phone. Don't calculate your remaining sleep. Don't reframe it as a problem that needs solving tonight. Lie still in the dark and recognize what is actually happening to you. Your first sleep is complete. Your brain has done its repair work. Your body is offering you the watch, the 2 hours of quiet that your ancestors used to think, to feel, to process the weight of being alive. You don't have to get out of bed. You don't have to journal or meditate or perform wellness. You just have to stop being afraid of the gap. The silence at 3 a.m. is not a malfunction. It is a signal older than language, older than civilization, older than every anxiety you will ever carry into the dark. It is your biology telling you that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Tonight, around 3 in the morning, your eyes will snap open, and for the first time, you will know exactly why.